I will call to order the regular meeting of the Lisle Park District Board of Commissioners, Thursday, June 20th at 7 p.m.
Sure. Commissioner Tapella. Commissioner Hummel.
Here.
Commissioner Altpeter is absent and Commissioner Dombrowski is absent. Yep. I'm sorry. Oh, President Wessel.
Here.
I'm so sorry. Jeez.
Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I do not see Commissioner Dombrowski, so we'll skip the remote attendance part for now. We have two presentations. First from Sikich.
Yes, this is Nick. He's our partner at Sikich, and he's the one who handled our audit. And second year partner on our job. And met him last year.
Hi, good evening. Thank you. Again, my name is Nick Bava. I'm a partner with Sikich and the partner that oversaw the district's audit. Here to report on the December 31st, 2023 fiscal year end. Before you, there are a couple of deliverables for your review and approval. One is the annual comprehensive financial report. That's the large audit document with the printed cover. And then there is the auditor's communication to the Board of Commissioners. That's a required communication deliverable every year. I'll highlight some items out of the annual comprehensive financial report. I'll take you through some page numbers so if you're interested in following along. And again, I'd be happy to address any questions that the board might have as part of this year's audit. So in the annual comprehensive financial report, we'll start on page Roman numeral 3. So page Roman numeral 3 is the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. This is a certificate that's been in the district's report for some time. This is the 22nd award, consecutive award. It's provided by the Government Finance Officers Association. It's reflective of the district submitting an annual comprehensive financial report. So an annual financial report is required by the state of Illinois and accounting statutes. The comprehensive piece, which is the introductory section, which includes some organizational data, the letter of transmittal, and then there's the statistical section, which is towards the back of the report, which contains a lot of historical data, 10 years of data from a financial, from a debt, from a revenue, and a demographic perspective. So what this certificate really represents is the district going above and beyond the minimum reporting requirements set by the state and by accounting standards. It's really prepared in the spirit of full disclosure for those interested in the district's financial position. So congratulate the district for continuing to go through this process. We expect that once this report's submitted, that the district will have their 23rd award for next year. So following this section, we'll jump a few pages ahead to page number 1, which has Sikich letterhead on top. It's the beginning of the financial section. So page number 1 is the beginning of the independent auditor's report. These few pages document our opinion on the financial statements as of December 31st, 2023. So what's nice is front and center there on page 1 is the opinion of our audit. So without reading these two paragraphs verbatim, what these two paragraphs indicate is that we've issued an unmodified opinion on the district's financial statements as of December 31st, 2023. So an unmodified opinion is a clean opinion, and it's the highest level of assurance that we as auditors can provide the district as part of the annual audit process. The following paragraph under the opinion section is a change in accounting principle paragraph. You'll see this every now and then, depending on accounting pronouncements that may impact local governments. In the case of the district, there's a new accounting standard that was issued 2 years ago on lease accounting. It really revitalized how leases are captured and accounted for on the face of your financial statements and in the notes. So the district hasn't historically had any significant leases that required financial statement recording. This standard changed that for the golf cart lease with Nadler. So in accordance with Statement 87, there's now a right to use asset for those golf cart vehicles associated with a lease liability over the life of this lease agreement. So overall, our opinion isn't modified with respect to this change in accounting principle. I'd just like to point out to the board when new accounting policies are adopted and reflected in your financials. So skipping past the independent auditor's report, you'll find the next section is the management's discussion and analysis. I know Scott circulated a a replacement page for just a chart update that was made today, actually. Pointing this section out every year. This is a section prepared by Scott. It's management's opportunity to provide some context and some narrative in terms of the fiscal year audit. There's a lot of statements and schedules and numbers in this report. So it's a very well put together 11 pages that, paints a good picture in terms of why there were certain increases, why there were certain decreases in comparison to 2022. Always suggest that as part of your review, you go through this analysis. So making our way into the financial statements themselves, it begins on page number 4. Pages 4, 5, and 6 are the district's long-term consolidated balance sheet and income statement. These statements are required in order to obtain that unmodified opinion that I referred to. They most closely resemble that of a commercial for-profit entity in that they are recorded on the full accrual basis of accounting and that they include all of the district's long-term capital assets, your long-term liabilities, your pension activity, its assets, liabilities offset by net position, which is your equity. So the net position on the bottom of page 4 represents equity that is organized from least liquid to most liquid. Your net investment in capital assets, that represents the district's investment in its infrastructure, its equipment, its playgrounds, all of its tangible capital assets, followed by restricted net position, which is, for lack of a better term, restricted for a particular purpose. Generally, these are your property tax levy restricted items. And then finally, your unrestricted net position, which can be utilized at the discretion of the board and management. So that's page 4 is your long-term balance sheet. Pages 5 and 6, page 6 in particular is your long-term income statement. This just represents your overall change in that position. It really just tells you if the district was economically better or worse off during the fiscal year. So when you look at governmental activities, which represents the district's general fund, recreation fund, those special levy funds, business type activities represents Riverbend Golf Course. Overall, the change in net position for governmental activities was positive this year, a 1.6 million increase in net position. And then the business type activities, the Riverbend Golf Course was up 380,000 as far as a positive change in net position. So these are your long-term statements. Making our way into the short-term statements, which begins on page 7. These short-term statements are a little bit more interesting, and the focus on these is fund balance. These are recorded on the modified accrual basis of accounting and what we call the current resources measurement focus. Again, it excludes those long-term items that we just touched on. You'll see these statements don't have capital assets and long-term liabilities. It really just focuses on what can be collected or paid within 1 year. So on page 7 here, this statement's organized by the district's major funds and then a column for your non-major funds. So a major fund, which has consistently been these 4 funds for the district year over year. A major fund is a fund that has a high volume of assets, liabilities, revenues, or expenditures. So general, recreation, debt service, and capital projects, just based on volume of those types of activities, tend to be major funds year over year. On the bottom of page 7 is your fund balance section. On the left, bottom left, is your general fund unassigned fund balance, which is your reserve. So the board fund balance policy target is set at 50%. This reserve intends to be 50% of the audited annual operating expenditures for the general fund. So 1.78 million is roughly 60% of the audited expenditures in fiscal year 23. So general funds within the target set by the board there. Recreation fund assigned for recreational purposes, about 1.45 million. Debt service has restricted fund balance set aside to fund debt service activities of 68,000. And then your capital projects fund is about 1.9 million. On page 9, 2 pages ahead, is the governmental funds income statement. Same fund structure. These are your major funds and your non-major funds. Revenues over expenditures equating to changes in fund balance. General fund, revenues over expenditures of 1.7 million, and after $1 million transfer out to the capital projects fund, still ended the year with a positive change of 124,000. Just worth pointing out, some allocated in the general fund, some in the recreation fund, but investment income was up from 54,000 in 2022 to 180,000 in 2023. So, taking advantage of those interest rates, like to see that. Recreation fund had a positive change, 66,000. So ending fund balance of 1.4 million. Debt service, positive change of 5,000. And capital projects ended the year after for that transfer in of 1 million, net change in fund balance increase of 200,000. So overall, across the board, positive years, nothing of significance, a little more of a break-even type model, but pointing out your governmental funds there. So the next statement is on page 12. This is your income statement for the district's proprietary fund, the Riverbend Golf Course Fund. Last few years, really since COVID, has been great for the Riverbend Golf Course Fund, continue to be the same this year. Operating revenues of 1.1 million over operating expenses of 762,000. So positive operating income of 380,000. So ending that position of 4.9 million, and your unrestricted reserve in the Riverbend Golf Course Fund is about 960,000. So all good news on the Riverbend Golf Course. Last item I'd like to cover, we're going to skip a bunch of pages ahead. It's on page 42. Represents the 9 last years of the Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund and the requirements associated with pension accounting for governments. So the IMRF, in this case, net pension asset, was most recently measured as of December 31st, 2023, just like this fiscal year end. Currently reporting a 543,000 net pension asset, which is up from a 47,000 pension liability last year. So a much stronger market performance. You had a $1.8 million in fair value losses in 2022. This year, 1.5 million in fair value gains. So overall, funding at 104%. In terms of the pension obligations for the district and the employees involved. So that just concludes the statements and topics I'd like to cover as part of this year's presentation. Audit process really started in November and kind of concluded here in early June. I'd like to thank Scott and all the folks involved in this year's process. Everybody here is always extremely professional, great to work with. And again, thank you for having me. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board might have.
Great, thanks for coming. Tom, Terry, any questions?
The only question I had, it was in this book, and I know it was kind of briefly mentioned when we approved the extension on the registration software. I know there's like an internal control item on here. That just is better than it was before, correct? And it's just a work in progress, like it just needs to get, okay.
We're getting much better with it.
Okay.
John and I have worked very closely on, making sure it ties out. And now we're even reconciling it on a monthly basis, so.
Okay.
Should not have that problem going forward.
And I saw the segregation of duties comment. I've been here for 3.5 years. I think it's the same comment that I've seen for 3 years. It's basically just due to the size of the staff, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's a standard count we're gonna get, because unless you want to hire more people, I mean, if you want me to hire more people and allocate, I'd be happy to do that, but it's not efficient and cost effective. So, but yeah, it's just the challenge you deal with when you have a small staff and so on, but I think we do a good job of, with what we have in place.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
No, thank you. Second presentation, John?
Yep, thank you. So I would like to formally introduce Sarah Mexicano to the board. She was with us. She began her role as the new Assistant Superintendent of Recreation on May 16th, so just over a month ago. She oversees directly our aquatics, fitness, athletics, customer service, and rentals. And one of her biggest skill sets that she brings with us to us is her background in aquatics. So from day one, even before she officially started, she joined in for our preseason training and has really helped lead a lot of trainings, come up with a lot of new procedure upgrades that we can do, and really just to set the tone for us to perform up to the standards of PDERMA and our lifeguard certification company, StarGuard Elite. New for this summertime, we transitioned from Jeff Ellison Associates, who was our previous lifeguard company, to StarGuard. And Sarah has an extensive background in that and really played just a huge role in all the ins and outs that go into transitioning the process, upgrading paperwork, retraining existing staff skills, training new skills to our new staff members and everything that goes into that. She's also been an incredible source of support for Manager Witter, who oversees Sea Lion Aquatic Park. And together they've really done some incredible things. Most notably, we just last week had our first unannounced audit by our StarGuard company, and we received the highest score possible throughout the whole facility observation. So we're really proud of that and really thankful for everything Sarah's contributed in just a quick first month of time. So excited to see everything that she brings to the table and accomplishes through her time in the district. And with that, I will ask her to come up to the podium and say a few words.
Hello, I'm Sarah Mexicano. I'm very excited to be here. I came from Bolingbrook Park District. I was there for their aquatic manager for a little over 4 years, and then I ended as the facility manager there. So I've learned a lot, and I had been striving to move up in the field, so was very excited for the Lisle Park District's opportunity. I also do work part-time for StarGuard as well as an auditor and IDC course instructor. So have a wide knowledge in aquatics. But along with that, I came from Geneva before Bolingbrook. I was there for about 4 years as well as the aquatic supervisor. And then I oversaw preschool and special events, and very excited to come here and learn a lot from the Lisle Park District, which I feel like I've learned a lot already in the past month. Very great work environment, very positive, very strong, hardworking employees as well. So it's fun to see how enthusiastic everyone is.
Great, welcome.
Thank you.
My son enjoys the pool, so I'm glad he's safe there. So one thing we always do when you formally get introduced is you get a trivia question.
Okay.
Unfortunately for you, it's not recreation or aquatics related. Hopefully it's okay. What is the name of the park that we are renovating to bring in new basketball courts, pickleball courts? Hopefully,
Tate?
sorry, what?
Is that Tate?
Tate Woods, we'll give it to you. Yeah, nice. We'll give it to you. Nicely done.
Yes.
You
Thank
can-
you.
You can come into work
welcome.
tomorrow.
All right, but that's the end of our presentation. So now we are on to public comment. Visitors are welcome to address the Board of Park Commissioners. You are asked to raise your hand and wait to be recognized by the board president. When recognized, please move to the lectern, speak to the microphone, and state your name, address, and the item you wish to discuss. It is requested that one spokesperson for a group be appointed to present the views of the entire group, rather than have multiple individuals repeat similar opinions. There will be a 5-minute time limit per speaker. Do I have any public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. I will entertain a motion to approve the meeting agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Well, yeah,
Yep,
Jan,
roll call, sure. Commissioner Tapella,
Aye.
Commissioner Hummel,
Aye.
President Wessel.
aye.
We could do
Yeah.
voice
still
vote, but
still
that's
getting
okay.
used to it. I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda items, inclusive of the voucher list of $1,037,117.13.
So move.
Second.
All right, Dan, can I have a roll call vote?
Yes. Commissioner Hummel,
Aye.
Commissioner Tapella,
Aye.
President Wessel.
Aye.
All right, motion passes.
Motion passes. With that, applications are submitted. Unfinished business. We don't have any new business. We also don't have any. So staff reports about the community park ramp engagement process.
I have a little bit of an update from when the date of that memo. We've been communicating with American Ramp Company today regarding their schedule. They will be getting us a flyer, hopefully tomorrow. They provided the survey, the online survey to staff this afternoon for us to review, and we got it back to them right away. They will then be preparing a flyer that will have a QR code on it that will bring users to their website to facilitate or to participate in our survey. They will also then, and that the survey will be open for 2 weeks. They originally suggested 1 week. I asked if we can do 2 just to give, another week's worth of opportunity, which of course they obliged. So that should be, hopefully that should be out and live by early next week, hopefully as early as Monday. We plan on promoting the project, obviously on social media. We'll have signage out on site as well as on the website. And after the survey closes in 2 weeks, we'll then have another flyer and another promotional thing that'll be promoting the in-person workshop where they will take results from the survey and then prepare a couple of options, equipment options. And they'll be on site on, it's Monday, July 22nd. We're thinking from 5 PM to 7 PM. And if weather's decent, we'd prefer to hold it down at the skate park. They will have some of their representatives on site as well as 2 professional skaters that they, I don't know how what their relationship is with them, but Brian told me today that, or yesterday, I guess, that some of the skaters are skaters. If they're into skating, they may be familiar with these people. He said that they like engaging with the kids. They like to skate with them, kind of show off a little bit. So I think that could be pretty fun. But they'll have storyboard, boards and stickers, or how they explain it to me, but they'll be asking people who come by to inform, communicate or identify the components or the pieces they prefer. They'll be there for Q&A, so they'll be able to kind of clarify anything or provide more information if needed. And that after that meeting, they'll prepare another revised rendering for our consideration, and then we'll go on from there. I think in my memo, I just wanted to make a point that I mentioned that they actually have 3 different lines of equipment, but 2 of them are for outside use, the Pro Series and the X Series. We have the X Series now, which is, it's a steel frame and everything, but the skating surface is skate-lite. And that material wears over time and needs to be replaced. And that's partly cause for the deterioration, because the screw holes that the material is affixed to, the threads get stripped after repeated replacements. But then the Pro Series is all steel skating surface. And I don't mean to be redundant with the memo, but I think it just bears repeating that that's the pro skaters' preference. It's many of the American Ramp Company personnel's preference, the steel. So our recommendation, staff's recommendation, is to really only present those options, because the Skate Light or the X Series is, one, it's a little more expensive up front, and then it requires ongoing maintenance, which is a pain. In fact, we just had to replace a number of sheets of the Skate Light out there. Then the park was closed for a couple days.
Yep.
Yep.
This week.
Yeah, it was closed 3 days this week. It's not fun.
Yep. So considering the backing that their Pro Series of steel has, and it's less costly on the front end, less costly long-term, that's staff's recommendation, is to just present those as options. But we can cross that bridge when we get to it. I asked them to give us the cost breakdown of each at the appropriate time, so we'll have full disclosure on any kind of decisions that'll be asked of you. Other than that, that's about all I have. John or Aaron, is there anything I missed?
I don't think so.
Nope.
So I would encourage you, once we firm up the July 22nd, which I believe we did today, but once we finalize that, we'll be promoting that. And I would encourage any or all of you to come by and attend, at least just be a fly in the wall. I know Commissioner Hummel showed up to a couple of Tate Woods meetings. I'd like to think that was kind of enlightening. It was for me too.
Abby would.
Yeah, that too. So we'll certainly keep you posted. And if there's any questions any of you have, fire away.
On the online survey, is there a way to make sure somebody isn't taking the survey multiple times, like at least the IP addresses?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. I'll find out. Anything else?
Any other questions? No?
Okay. Can I just provide a little update or a request on another topic?
Sure.
Pickleball, everyone's favorite topic.
No.
Is that okay
I'm
still? I'm kidding. If you recall, last July-ish, I believe, the park board had directed staff to start paying attention to other matters of importance due to the ongoing nature of the neighbors and their complaints regarding those courts. And the board had said that back then that when the Tate Woods courts are finished is when the board will reconsider the future of the Abbeywood courts. Obviously, as much as we'd like the Tate Woods courts to be finished, they're not today, but I think it's appropriate to start these discussions, a couple of months ahead of time so we can be prepared to take whatever action the board wants to take. I just wanted to go through a couple of things real quick. That noise, it does continue to be an issue. We still do hear from a couple of the neighbors on a somewhat of a regular basis. And I know that while staff was directed to tend to other matters of importance, I will admit that we have done a little bit of work. We continue to try to find some ways to meet in the middle and to find some amicable position for the both of us. And so we have done a few things. And Superintendent Pratchett, would you mind kind of explaining what we've done out there from a programmatic standpoint?
Sure. So our summer sessions started earlier, like around end of May. We sent out proactive communication to all the participants for the summertime, telling them designated areas where to park, reminding them to not block neighbors' driveways, reminded them of the actual start time of the classes, and even went as far to remove the 8 a.m. option. So we would lessen the likelihood of anyone showing up prior to the start of classes and just tried to respect the quiet hours in the morning time. Additionally, we reminded them that the courts are located to surrounding neighbors and just reminded them to be mindful and have proper etiquette. Since that time, we've remained in good communication with our instructor, Bill Littell, and we've even introduced a quiet paddle to him to allow for participants to learn more about it, demonstrate it during the programs, and really just begin the process of educating everyone that we can about the different resources that are available to them to help lessen the noise. And we're continuing to do that. We're looking into some other items, and we're excited about just the opening of Tate Woods courts, because it's going to allow us to bring all the programming over to that location and really try to help resolve the situation as best as we can. But for now, we're just trying to be proactive, monitor the situation, and be responsive as best we can. But our registration numbers are a little bit more from last year, despite reducing some of our classes, and everyone that we've talked to personally out there has seemed very receptive to doing what we can to preserve the use of those courts. So we hope that will continue no matter what other steps we take.
I know that, I don't know if you said it or not, but when these sessions conclude in late July, there's going to be no more programming out there.
That's correct. So the end of July will be the last date of our pickleball classes over there. And then from that point, assuming that we have some autumn time left to have programming take place at Tate Woods once it opens, that's where everything will transition to. And we did a recent survey of our current pickleball participants just to ask them about the way things have been going over in the current classes. And we were excited to see that 100% of our survey respondents rated the quality of instruction as excellent, at the top rating they could offer, which obviously is reflective of our instructor over there, Bill Littell. But we also asked for their ideas and input of what they want to see once we open up Woods. So we already had some intentions of doing a variety of programming, from leagues, clinics, tournaments, even some special events. And we just like to get their feedback on what days and times they'd like to participate. But overall, it seems like there's a lot of interest and a lot of excitement about the opportunities coming once Tate Woods available. And, we're kind of looking forward to having that option too, to at least give that for our program participants, but just open it up to the community who obviously is looking for additional court locations that they can play at. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
As for the future of the courts at Abbeywood Parks, staff believes there's at least 3 options, probably more, but the easiest ones to come at is to do nothing and keep them open when Tate Woods opens, close and repurpose them, which is what some of the neighbors had vocalized previously. And another one is to conduct a trial of quiet courts. Staff has done some research into quiet courts, and there doesn't appear to be very many that are in existence out there. Laguna Beach, as I've reported previously, Laguna Beach, California has instituted quiet courts in one of their parks. They don't enforce it because, it's difficult to enforce. And they haven't codified it, meaning it's not in their police code, so they can't go out there and cite anybody for it. But the person with whom I spoke said it has been successful. They get a few complaints of people not using the quiet equipment, but he's reported me that they've seen a huge improvement. And then Sarah, thank you. She found that Seattle Parks and Recreation is doing actually a pilot program of their own, along with one of the universities there, on a quiet paddle. So they've begun that process. I sent an email to a handful of our neighboring park districts, and of course, it's like, well, you'll be the first doing a quiet course if that's something we wanted to consider. Um, I think it's an interesting approach to it. Because I'd like to think that with no longer programming those courts at Abbeywood Park, I think one, that they'll see a reduction too, and those are typically in the early morning, first thing in the morning and then dinner time.
Yeah, we have 10 total hours a week that we program over there currently. So it's Wednesday and Friday mornings, and then Tuesday, Thursday, like 4 to 6 type time frame. So
Yeah, so we're hopeful that that'll reduce the use, and obviously with the Tate Woods courts being offered, we'd like to think that'll kind of direct people that way. We certainly recognize that enforcement is the challenge. And I know I've said before, we shouldn't have rules unless we're willing to enforce them. But admittedly, in this case, if this is something we can reach some common ground with the neighbors, I've had initial conversations with one of the neighbors who was receptive. In fact, it was he who brought that idea forward to conduct a trial from when the Tate Woods courts are open until for the rest of this season, to see if that'll work, if in designating them as quiet courts. The USA Pickleball Association has devoted a lot of time and resources into research and development of quiet technology. Like Superintendent Pratcher reported, that the owl paddle is one that has been, I guess, approved for use even in tournament play. There aren't any balls that are certified for tournament play yet, but they have actually supported the use of the Gamma Librarian ball. It's a foam ball, so it's a solid ball. Reviews on that have been mixed, but the fact that the association has deemed them appropriate for play, but not in tournaments, that's encouraging. So that's another option. Ironically, the director of the equipment standards and facility design of the Pickleball Association connected me with an individual in Michigan, who I believe is in the aerospace industry, but has a 3D printer, and they somehow got involved into the pickleball quiet technology game, so to speak. And he reportedly has a ball that they've been using for the last several months. I spoke to him the other day. Believe it or not, we're one of the districts that one of the communities he'd like to get us some of those balls. The problem is they're about $30 a piece right now. And they haven't been officially sanctioned by the association, but he informed me the other day that he's received some positive feedback from them, and he expects them to get there. So the thought is, if we can designate these courts as quiet courts, post appropriate signage, have a QR code, or have information on site that can direct people to, whether it's the association's website or ours or both, that can provide links right to manufacturers' websites where they can purchase or at least view what's a quiet paddle or what's a quiet ball. I think as far as enforcement, we certainly wouldn't intend, unless we were directed to, but we wouldn't intend on staffing anybody out there. So we have to rely on us doing periodic inspections, drive-bys. Of course, we would expect the neighbors to be very vigilant about activity being held out there. We can inform them that if it's during working hours and they see any activity out there that appears to be outside of the quiet use, if they can contact us, between myself, Superintendent Pratcher, Superintendent Cerruti, or anyone else who's able, we can get out there and approach the individuals and inform them of the policy, give them some information. So we're willing to give it a shot. It's certainly not going to be easy, but if that can establish some middle ground with the neighbors and the pickleball group, I think it could be a win all around. And I guess lastly, we're at the forefront of this thing, and we've been on national news, and it certainly has been a frustrating experience all around. But I think staff thinks if we can remain on the forefront, but in this case, kind of on the other side of things, as being actually part of a solution, and working in concert with the neighbors to establish some parameters that can preserve the use of those courts, I think it's worth a try. And if nothing else, I will be able to see in the autumn months, the impact Tate Woods has on use of the Abbeywood courts, and maybe it would be reduced enough where even if not everyone is using the quiet balls or paddles, that maybe the neighbors would find that, this isn't so bad. And am I being a little looking through rose-colored glasses? Absolutely, but I feel sometimes we have to keep positive and to just keep on the right side of these sorts of issues. So I'd like to hear any feedback on what you think. My thinking would be is if there is consensus to at least explore this opportunity, we would like to. Would like to meet with the neighbors personally and explain to them what our abilities are and what we're able to do and what we're unable or unwilling to do, in hopes that we can establish, like I said, some mutual understanding and a kind of a meet in the middle approach. So I'd be curious to see what anybody thinks.
I mean, I would like to see when the Tate Woods courts open, how the amount of play. I know we're not going to program Abbeywood anymore, but I was just, maybe that would solve it in itself if this usage is down anyway. I mean, if it's like only a few hours a week, then that might solve the problem. Then I'd probably rather just see how it goes as is first, and then maybe switch to the quiet court if that's still a problem. Repurposing the court, I really don't want to do that, at least not yet. So I would even give it a trial run as is, and then maybe do the quiet court if necessary. Have you talked to anybody in the pickleball community, what their thoughts are? I mean, is everybody planning to besides our programming, is like the players themselves, are they on their own? Are they planning to go to Tate Woods more than Abbeywood? Do you know, or have you kind of?
I don't know,
Yeah.
John, do you
I
know?
would say that just naturally with something shiny and new, it's going to
Yeah.
draw a lot of people, but there's also
Yeah.
a lot of people that live in Green Trails that are going to
Sure.
opt for the court that's closest to their house no matter what. So it's hard to say exactly, but I know at least from the program participants that know about Tate Woods, everyone is very excited for it and will use it.
And then also, would the pickleball players themselves be willing to use and try the quiet paddles or the quiet balls too? So,
Well, that was another
yeah,
thought that we had.
yeah.
Was maybe we can purchase some of these Gamma Librarian balls and maybe some of these 3D printer balls if they do become sanctioned, and we can make them available. I as much as I'd love to get a bunch of them and leave a barrel out there and say, here, use these. I can't imagine those things would last very long. But to your point, I think if I would very much like to try to facilitate, like John had said, Superintendent Pratchett, just the information sharing and the helping our players get educated on what is out there, because the neighbors are probably right when they see a sign that says use quiet paddles or quiet balls. Well, what's that mean? Well, now it does mean something. It didn't mean a whole lot even 6 months ago, but now that the association has a page dedicated to it, it's getting legs and it's exciting. And I just think we have a nice opportunity to, like I said, to be part of the solution.
I would agree. I mean, I think the timing of this is good. The fact that, and you said this earlier, Dan, that when we were first having these discussions, there were not a lot of solutions. We had to take a hard line one way or the other because there really wasn't an option for a middle ground so much. I think that that's no longer the case. So the timing of this is great. I'm really encouraged by the thought of having a compromised position, something where we can, we're not looking at saying we're going to get rid of the courts. We're also not saying we're going to do nothing. I think that I think our first right approach, or secondary as soon as we have some data. I agree with you, Commissioner Hummel, that I think having some data is going to be really important too. Let's see how this goes, especially once things start to switch. Now, it doesn't mean that's how it'll be forever. You have pickleballs present. The community is going to use the courts. The purpose of having a pickleball court is for it to be used. So, we're never going to be at a position where they're not going to get any use. And if we are in a position where they're not being used, then we should really consider repurposing them anyway. So, but anyway, my point here was I like the idea and I'm encouraged by the thought of a compromise that would allow us to continue having those courts functional. And now that we have the technology and now that we have things that are being accepted by the pickleball community, I think that we're in a better position for it to be encouraged and actually adopted. I don't think it would have been successful a year ago at all. And I don't feel that way anymore. I do think that we have some potential. So
Yeah, and I agree with Commissioner Hummel, Commissioner Tella. Like, I don't want to do anything until Tate Woods is solved, right? Like, that's kind of obviously step one. Yeah, I agree with Tom too, right? The problem might solve itself with Tate Woods, but yeah, I'm definitely open to the idea of like if it continues to be a noise problem after Tate Woods, that yeah, being part of I liked what you said, like right, we've been in the national news for bad things. It'd be kind of fun to be part of a solution for possibly a problem that other park districts or park departments around the country can see.
Yeah.
And maybe some of those, manufacturers are willing to sponsor some stuff and send it over here to try their new stuff
But
out.
I was just
Yeah,
like the 3D ball guy. I mean,
send us one.
Throw me,
Right.
yeah,
yeah, like,
Well,
even like a two for one or
And
something.
we're even in some preliminary discussions with the Owl Paddle Company
Yeah.
to see if we can arrange for some type of discounted rate that our residents can purchase from
Mhm.
us on the paddles themselves.
yeah, that's what Laguna Beach, with the individual whom I spoke, said they did. They worked with Owl Paddle and they're getting them from Owl at cost, which is $120 a paddle versus $149 up. So they bought a bunch of them and so they sell them at their cost too. And he's told me they've sold over 120 of them.
That's great.
So that helps. I think if you can make them readily available,
Mhm.
that could be helpful too. And those balls, the Gamma balls, I mean, those are a lot more affordable. I think people would be more willing to do that. And what the neighbors have said, I'd like to think I would agree that players would rather play with some modified equipment than not play at all. But I guess that potentially remains to be seen.
I think it might be interesting too, it was curious that you mentioned that Sarah had found, was it University of Seattle? That's been doing some research in this front. I can't imagine they're the only university looking to put their hand into the research community in here. And I don't want to overburden if we don't have resources to support something like that. But if there's local colleges or local outfits that are looking to do similar research, I mean, we could be a part of that as well. I want to be very intentional about, if we were to do that, because I know that can go, in multiple directions.
Yeah.
But it's a hot topic. So it might be one worth looking to see if there's opportunities for us to partner as well.
Sure. I think with our contacts at the association, it's that further, I think, broadens our reach. If we can tell them that this is something we're considering, can you spread that word in the inner circles and see if like you said, if there are universities here, or if the Seattle or the Washington, whatever university that is doing that, if they'd be willing to, hey, show us a couple of your prototypes and we'll use them here and we'll give you our feedback. I mean, so I think, I don't know, again, rose-colored glasses, maybe, but I think it's worth a try.
Yeah.
And the other thing that might help too is I know besides Lisle Park District, other neighboring park districts have put a lot of more pickleball courts online, like McCollum Park and Downers Grove. And like I was contacting you the other day with these indoor facilities
Yeah.
now. So, I mean, even the private sector, they're starting to have indoor courts. So, and like, I mean, it's really hot on Sunday. I mean, some people are going to go inside and
Yeah.
play. So, I mean, I think the supply is starting to catch up with the demand as far as the courts, where there might have been a shortage, especially in Lisle, but even some of the other communities. So again, some of this might flush itself out, hopefully. And I would assume at some point the growth is going to level off. I'm not to say it still won't grow or won't be popular, but the percentage annually that it grows will level off. It has to.
I hope you're right.
Well, it has to. I mean, run out of people. We're gonna run out of people, so. Yeah.
Everybody's playing.
Yeah, so.
Well, I appreciate that. We will keep you posted on that and we'll just go from there.
Okay.
Thank you.
CSPAR report is submitted. Officer reports. I don't have a whole lot to report. It's the Memorial Day parade with you guys. Nice to see everyone. It was a good event. Looking forward to the 4th of July and all the events coming here and the concerts at the park over the next couple of weeks. So looking forward for an exciting summer. Superintendent Silver?
The investments that we have are all FDIC or fully collateralized, so our money is protected. We did make the investment with Winfield, the village of Winfield. You'll see that in June, in July, my June report for investments, you'll see the investment at 6% for the 90 days for the village of Winfield, which we've done, I think, for maybe the last 7 or 8 years. So it benefits us and benefits them, so that's nice. The golf course is ahead of pace this year versus last year, which is pretty amazing since last year was a great year. Though the expenses in the fund, we're down $2,800. Most of it's due to the restaurant side that at the time we were getting paid, since we didn't have occupancy in January, February, and March, the expenses for that portion of the building, we weren't getting reimbursed for, but on the golf side, we're doing better than we were last year at this time. So that's very rewarding and looking good. You notice the IMRF situation that we're 104% invested, which is awesome. The market's doing what we anticipated it would and helping the residents of Lisle on that liability, which is now an asset, which is wonderful. So, and currently our rate as an employer is lower than the employee pays. So another benefit, which means we can use that money for other capital projects, other operations and things like that. So the money will be used in other places that is needed. So, and the other thing you'll notice is obviously the capital projects is up large compared to last year. And that all has to do with the bond that we issued, that we're spending on capital projects. So every other year you'll see that. So that's the big bit, and everything else is not, it's pretty much status quo on the operations and things of that sort. So unless someone has extra questions.
Tom, Terry?
Far as-
Yeah, sorry,
I'm
report.
sorry.
Yeah,
Just the
sorry,
I'm
any
sorry,
other-
I meant, yeah, just the Memorial Day parade I was at, and there's something else I can't remember.
And I'll echo, Memorial Day Parade was fantastic. I had my father, who's an Air Force veteran, here from out of town. He was blown away by not just the professionalism, but by the community support and seeing some of that. And he lives in San Diego, arguably slightly larger city than Lisle. And his comment in that was that you don't get that kind of feel anywhere else. And he loved it. So it was really great. So all the efforts that were put into it were fantastic.
That's awesome.
Well, if you like that one, he should come back for the 4th of July.
For sure.
So my daughter was telling him about it and he was looking at his flights, like, maybe I'll come back out.
We can find room on the
Okay.
trailer for him if he
Oh,
wants
yeah.
to.
Exactly.
With
Okay.
that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So,
So-
moved.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
I.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned at 7:48.